It's hard to describe the honor of being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. First of all, you have to start with all the kids who've ever played Pop Warner. Then some of those go on to play in high school and then on to college. Then out of college, only a select group are good enough to make it in the National Football League. And finally, out of the thousands and thousands of men who have ever played football, only 211 are immortalized in Canton, Ohio. Now, in July of 2000, the Hall of Fame hosted a reunion. And it's hard for me not to get excited when I think about Don Shula reminiscing with Otto Graham or Deacon Jones laughing with Gale Sayers and Paul Hornung. Well, our film crews got to sit down and talk with all of these men. And after all the memories they've given us, we made a film for them to remember pro football's greatest reunion.
In July of 2000, 111 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame returned to Canton for the Hall's annual enshrinement. It was the largest gathering of Hall of Famers in the history of American sport. The legends who built the game and those who defined it for generations once again stood atop its proudest stage. The glory of seasons past became a football portrait for the ages.
It was as if though wave after wave kept coming, and each time a person was introduced, all of us, myself included, would have my own little snapshot. The memory would click on of who that person was, what his games were, what made them great.
When I come back here and see him again, my film up in my head starts running, and I see all these pictures of them doing what they did in those days, and it's a constant experience here of having those flashbacks of watching these great players play.
You look around and say, God, I have been blessed to be standing here on these steps with all these great guys. Where else in the world would you rather be at this point? I couldn't think of any place else. My heart was beating like a tom-tom. I'm 60 years old. I'm just like a little kid. I'm going, man, I can't believe this.
What goes through my mind is, was that me? Was that me that did this? Was that me that was involved in that Baltimore Colt era? I'm like in a dream, man. You know, I just can't believe this is me here at this point, at this time, with these guys.
The faces, you can still recognize Bill Dudley, Bob St. Clair. These are guys that I saw when I was growing up. They were my heroes.
I watched these guys, as kids growing up. John Henry Johnson, Joe Namath. I have 4 older brothers. That's all they talked about. I knew the history of Joe Namath as a high schooler in Beaver Falls.
To see Joe Namath come out, to see them erupt, I was actually getting teary-eyed. What a great privilege to be introduced and be on the stairs with those guys.
To see them again, embrace each other and then come over and embrace me is one of the great thrills of my life.
I wanted to say hello and meet Joe Montana, a kid from Pennsylvania, a scroungy kid. You look at him, you say, pro football player. But what a pro football player, yes.
The Hall of Fame is a tremendous honor. I had a very difficult time with it in the beginning. I saw the Hall of Fame as an ending point. I mentioned to a couple people that in some ways I felt like, while I'm only 44 years old, I feel like I'm in my grave, in my coffin alive, and they're throwing dirt on me, and I can feel it, and I'm trying to get out. I've now seen the light that this is not an ending point. This is a beginning point. This is the beginning of the rest of my life, post-career, with a new team. Let's take a look at these guys. What a team it is.
The greatest team in the history of the NFL. And it's not the Steelers, it's not the Raiders, it's not the Miami Dolphins. It's the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame. And regardless of where you played, this is your final resting place. you're a part of this team now.
For the Hall of Famers, the highlight of induction weekend is the Friday luncheon at the Brookside Country Club. It's a private affair with only Hall of Fame members and staff invited.
To tell the truth, the reason I come back each year is because of that room. I come into that room and it gives me the juice and the energy I need to get through the next 365 days until I can get back into that room again.
It was fantastic. This is great. I'm just saying, it's great. You know, a little kid in a candy store, you know, looking at all these guys.
When you walk in there, that's the amazement of it all. And I think that brings it, you know, to another level, you know, to see Bob Lilly. You know, saying, wow. You know, I watched Bob Lilly when I was in high school, and now to be in the same room that he's in, that's really huge.
Well, Otto Graham was my idol. You know, I grew up in Paynesville, Ohio. When I was drafted by the Browns, I got to training camp, and the first day I was the first guy on the field, all nervous and excited, and Otto comes out. He says, "Hey, kid, warm me up." And he throws me the ball, and I catch it. I'm catching the ball from Otto Graham. And, you know, those are the kind of memories that I had in that room today.
Remember what you told me? Well, your problem, Shula, is you're not coachable.
I mean, I walked in the room, the first guy comes over and he hits me alongside the shoulder. I mean, actually knocked me back a little bit was Joe Green. And then there's Mel Blount standing next to him. I hate the Steelers, you know.
How you doing? Everything all right?
How are you?
The luncheon allows one Hall of Fame generation to welcome another.
Congratulations, Bill Willis. Yeah. Thank you.
Some of us are very successful in life. Oh, I see. And we guess the part. I hear you. You don't guess this often. Right.
The luncheon is the most intimate gathering of the weekend, and it turns some of the game's greatest players into awestruck fans. After the reception, the Hall of Famers, and only the Hall of Famers, adjourn to a private dining room where lunch is served, along with a message to the incoming class.
Hey, you guys don't realize what this means to be a part of this exclusive fraternity. You respect it. You give it all the dignity that you've ever given anything that you've ever done in your life.
It was really special hearing that from all the different guys, all, you know, again, different teams, different positions, different eras, and that really sank into my soul.
Even guys that you thought would be brash and cocky, you can see when they're sitting there, and you go out of way to look at those guys. Like last year, like Lawrence Taylor. It was obvious. You know, you'd think LT's pretty blasé about everything. Last year, he's sitting there, and he was like a school kid on the first day of class, and who wouldn't be?
And when they talked about football, you saw their kind of the fire return to their eyes, and you knew that those guys, when they stepped on that football field, they were either going to win or they were just going to be carried off on their shield.
Ray Nitschke was the embodiment of that passion, first as a Green Bay Packer, and later as the emotional leader at the Brookside Luncheons. After Ray's death in 1998, the luncheon was named in his honor.
This luncheon here, he was always the guy that was really enthusiastically welcoming the new group, and it got really emotional, so we'll miss him. We'll miss him.
Ray loved this Hall of Fame luncheon. He lived for this day. It was his day to shine.
Pro football did more for Ray Nitschke than anybody I've ever known. Ray Nitschke would have been in the penitentiary. There was a time, his first 2 or 3 years, he was headed out of the league and down until he stopped it and turned it around, and he turned into Mr. Packer.
Football gave me a chance to express myself, to get recognition, and to do something well. And I was committed to the game of football, and I'll never forget the great game that it is, and what it's given Ray Nitschke, a chance for an education, to better himself, to be a better human being.
Of all the Hall of Famers, I think this luncheon meant more to Ray Nitschke. He never missed. This was his luncheon to get up and tell the inductees who are coming into the Hall of Fame, he did it every year, how privileged they were to be in such a select group. He would rant and rave and storm around and what this means to me. And one day you'll understand what it means to you, and he'd stick his finger in Bart Starr's face or something. But he was just as passionate and just as, for lack of a better word, just as Lombardi-ish as you might imagine it to be.
Yeah, I tell you, it pumped you up. It got you going. You could go 3 or 4 years on one of Nitschke's togs alone.
He brought tears to all our eyes because he still has that passion and that love and that feel for the game. He was, in many ways, he was like our heartbeat at those luncheons. I miss him a great deal, and I know everybody does.
Really, the only regret I had in '98 when I was inducted that he wasn't here because he passed away early that year. What he once told me still rings in my ears. He looked me right in the eyes with that gruff voice, and he said, you know, it was a privilege for us to play in the NFL. He said, so many guys think that it was a privilege for the league to have them.
You know what? There were a lot of wonderful things said to me. There was a lot of wonderful things said to all of us in there. But I looked at Nitschke's picture. They had a frame of Nitschke. So one thing I'm going to remember is that, because he spoke to me just there. Spoke to me about the game. He's a true warrior. He was a true man. He represented what football should be represented. I saw a lot of what I need to be. Yeah, I have a long ways to go.
Question could throw football's greatest players for a loss.
You're asking a question right now that would be almost impossible to answer.
Woo-wee.
That's a damn good question.
What a question.
Difficult question.
Nice question.
$1 million question.
Great question.
Gee whiz.
Woo. Woo. Woo.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Boy, I don't know. I mean, to ask something like that.
Thanks, man. I mean, you know, what? Man, alive.
Lord have mercy.
So what is the killer question?
I don't think it's a fair question. I really don't think it's a fair question.
Imagine one night in the Hall of Fame after the doors are locked and the building is deserted. Suppose, just once, the busts could come to life and play their own game. The ultimate pickup game. Who would be the first player chosen?
The first player I'd pick would be Bronco. I'd have to pick him. And you look at them, they knew nothing about nutrition, they knew nothing about weightlifting. They just went out there and played hard-nosed football with a piece of leather on their head.
I would pick Mary Motley as the fullback, number one.
I'd pick Steve Van Buren. He was a great running back.
I think Night Train Lane. Yeah, the Night Train.
I would love to play with Bobby Bell.
Gino Marchetti. Yeah.
I have to pick Lenny Moore, and I think I'd pick Lenny Moore.
Walter Payton. I think he's the epitome of all of us with his character and his spirit of enjoying what you do and going out and preparing to play it at the highest level that one possibly could. I remember Walter giving a speech in Tampa, Florida, 2 or 3 years ago, and he emphasized to the audience to find out what it is that you enjoy doing, that you have fun doing. That is what you should be doing in life. And I think he lived it that way.
Well, I'd tell you right off the bat, it would be Gale Sayers. And I tell you what, I'd put him on offense, I'd put him on defense because he was the most electrifying running back and player that I've ever seen. I never played against Gale, but I tell you what, like everybody else, I've seen the highlight film, and the film don't lie.
Let me pick two. My teammate Dick Butkus and Deacon Jones. I played against Deacon when I came up, and I think he's the best of the best as far as being a defensive end. Dick Butkus, I've been hit as hard in practice as by Dick, as by anybody in the game. There's no one tougher than Dick Butkus.
The emotion that he had, the fierceness, his desire to win, and he didn't play with great Bear teams, but he certainly was a standout, and he made those Bear teams that he played on that much more competitive.
I think I'd want Warfield on my side, for sure. I think I'd throw more passes, too.
Well, naturally, since I'm a receiver, I got to have somebody to throw it. You know, I got to have a quarterback. You know, naturally, I got to choose Namath.
So often, the easiest choice is the one you know best.
Tony Dorsett.
Roger Staubach.
Well, you know, Joe Green was a pretty good one for us. I'd probably stick with that.
My first pick would be Joe Green.
The Miami Dolphins selected a teammate whose bust is still on order.
I guess I'd probably start with the quarterback position, and I'd probably pick Dan Marino.
It would probably be Dan Marino.
You know, I've got to go with number 13, and I've coached, you know, Unitas, and I've coached Bob Greasy, but Dan Marino has got all of the records in the history of the National Football League. He's got all the passing records.
Dan Marino isn't eligible for induction until 2005, but there is no doubt about his greatness or the value of a Hall of Fame quarterback.
I would probably pick Sammy Ball. He could run, he could pass, he could punt. He played defense. 1 year led the league in punting and passing and pass interceptions. He's the best football player, as far as I'm concerned, I ever saw.
It's a no-brainer because it would be Joe Montana.
Well, I have to begin with Joe Montana. I have to do that.
I'm picking Joe Montana because the guy just wins.
If winning is the true measure of a quarterback, the choice seems obvious.
Otto Graham.
Why would you pick Otto Graham?
I'll say, to me, he's the greatest football player ever played. Because in 10 years, he put us in a championship game 10 years in a row. A lot of guys had more ability and probably more skills, you know, but he could win. And that's what counts, doesn't it? He could win.
Unitas. And I feel very comfortable about that choice.
I would say John Unitas. Let him call the plays. He's the best play caller I've ever seen. The most competitive, winning quarterback, maybe, that's ever played the game.
John Unitas received the most votes among quarterbacks, but it was one of his contemporaries who received the most votes overall.
If I were going to pick one guy that I wanted to have on my football team, it would be Jim Brown. Greatest football player ever to play, in my estimation.
Jim Brown. You know that. I'd take Jim Brown. A lot of people say I replaced Jim Brown, but you never replaced the best running back in the history of professional football.
He was the only guy that I really didn't want to play against him. You know, I mean, I wasn't jumping up and down to go out there and tackle him.
I never had a chance to play against this person who is revered. So being a competitor, like we all are, you sort of think about, okay, now that's one that you want to go against.
You know, to face Johnny Unitas, to face him in that 2-minute situation, and to have Jim Brown back there, it couldn't get any better. Now, what I won, it's not the defeat that I'm worried about. It's the thrill to have the dare to try to go up against them. The challenge to go up against those two is what I would seek. That's the ultimate, man. That's the best.
Let's say if you go back to the Hall of Fame tonight, all by yourself.
Well, you know,
Wait a second, wait.
I'd pick myself.
No, I'm telling you, what is the question? You're the captain. You're the captain of the team.
Can't pick myself. That's average 14.7 points a game. Whoever did that?
When you walk inside of that building and you walk down those corridors and you see the bust or the likeness of each member who's in the Hall of Fame, this represents a stature, something that is a little bit larger than life itself. And to be selected and to be singled out and to be immortalized is the greatest honor that any, I think, athlete can receive.
Guys sneak over to the Hall of Fame. and walk up and down those lines of bus. I heard some of them mention that the other day. Said they went inside, you know. And I'm telling you, man, this is a strange, strange feeling.
And my first reaction was, it just looked like me. And yeah, maybe. I always go and find my bust, make sure someone hasn't stuck any gum on the nose or anything.
The Hall of Fame sent us a replica of the bust. My wife has it, you know, sitting there to scare the crows away. So sometimes I'll sit there and I'll look at it and I'll, you know, kind of reflect and think about the journey that it took, you know, to get there. And it has hair.
Kind of places I guess a reality point on it, because you talk about it and, you know, the induction, everything is words, things written, things said, but the bus being in there is the statement. Say, okay, there it is. It is for real.
See, I saw mine under different circumstances. You know, we tried to walk through the hall, you know, the week of the induction was going on. You couldn't because there was so many people. So I asked one of the security guys, could I go through the Hall of Fame right now at night? And so he said, well, I guess so. That was almost like magic. That was like a movie, like a Field of Dreams movie. You know, as I walk through and I'm looking at all these, you know, different busts of everybody, you know, Walter Payton, Earl Campbell, Dale Sayers, you know, I'm walking through Crazy Leg Hurst, and all of a sudden I come up on my own. I just stand there and I just stared at it, you know, for a long time. And I could almost hear the, you know, way to go, Dick, way to go. You know, it was almost like playing the whole game all over again, you know, through the whole hall. And that was just a great moment for me.
You see the bust of George Halas, who's the founder of the National Football League. You see the great players like John Unitas, a bust of Steve Van Buren. Those are the players that I read about when I was a youngster. And it's just kind of difficult to believe that I have a place alongside of them.
As I looked at the bus, the only thing I could think and say at the time, that's me. That is me.
First of all, when you kind of look at it, you say, wow, that's a pretty good likeness. It's a pretty awesome feeling.
It's still one of those, can't believe that that's my bust in this place. You're in with these guys, and Forrest Gregg's in there. I played under Forrest, but we're in there together. You know, he's my teammate now. He was my head coach, now he's my teammate.
It was kind of like visiting your gravesite. That's kind of how I feel when I go into the Hall of Fame and I go to that place where they have my bust.
I mean, tears come to my eyes to think that here, no matter, after I'm gone, this is going to still be here. I mean, that's part of the history now. It will never go away.
I want to be around these guys. I'm a part of them. It's a select, unique family, and families are special.
I don't think there'll ever be another one like this as far as a reunion.
It's the church of football.
You become immortal when you go into the Hall of Fame. Here I am today, and here I will be tomorrow.
God, this was the greatest weekend of my life.
Coming up, the second half of pro football's greatest reunion.
Each year, 1.5 million kids play high school football. 10,000 play major college football. Of those, about 210 are drafted to play professional football. During the entire 75 years of the NFL, there's been about 16,000 players, and only 170 players have ended up in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's kind of mind-boggling, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm one of them.
The realization of such a dream can cause even the greatest players to ask one humbling question.
How did I get here?
Why am I here?
Do I belong? You always question that in your own mind.
When you really examine in your own heart of hearts whether you're worthy enough, I don't think there's one person that could honestly stand up there and say, yes, I am worthy of being in this Hall of Fame.
I say to myself, who the hell am I? Look in the mirror, say, who the hell do you think you are? Me? Charlie Bednarik, as they say in Slovak? Poor kid from the streets of Bethlehem, making it to the top? I can tell you one thing, it's a long way from the Bronx. I was 6 years old. I learned how to play football down at PSA on a cinder field.
Cotton fields playing six-man football. I mean, Shelby, North Carolina.
A little guy coming out of a little town in Texas that just wanted to play football.
I think about my past and where I came from, a small school in Flint, Michigan.
Growing up in Evansville, Indiana, watching Otto Graham and the Cleveland Browns, I didn't even think I was going to college to play college ball.
Young kid from East St. Louis, Illinois, he only played 1 year of high school football.
Didn't play but a half year of high school football. Didn't go to play football in college at all. Went to run track and said, if you go out for football and stay out, we'll give you a full scholarship, buddies. Well, it's the best deal I had, so I took it. In every phase of football that I had doubts that I could make it. Starting in junior high school when I was 6'3", 150 pounds, 13 size foot, tripped on every blade of grass. I didn't know how in the world I was ever going to be a football player.
I never played high school football until my senior year. I never got to play much at all until I was a senior. In junior college, I was third team before our first game, and 2 guys got hurt, and I got the chance to start. At SMU, I never got started a game at SMU in my 4th year. In pro football with Baltimore, I was on the ragged edge of getting cut for 2 years.
Many times when I was on that sideline, wearing a Baltimore Colt uniform, and I'd look around the stadium, I said, man, as a kid, man, I never dreamed, I'd even be a professional football player. And I'm looking at that Colt blue, man, I'd grab it, and I said, man, I'm on the team.
In Shea Stadium, a timeout, you look up, and I never will forget the first year. You look around, and there's 63,000 people up there. That's at an AFL attendance deal at that time, and I thought, gee whiz, what am I doing here? I ought to be getting autographs from all these guys, and here I am, I'm in the huddle.
Never dreamed of it. I had dreams of, making long runs and making a game, winning touchdown, things like that. Never dreamed of being in football heaven.
I didn't find out what the Hall of Fame was until 1984. I was at the Pro Bowl with Ricky Jackson, and he said, Eric, you're going to the Hall of Fame. I'm like, I didn't want to sound too dumb, so I'm like, what's the Hall of Fame? You know what the Hall of Fame is? I'm like, no. He said, that's why the greatest football players that ever played go, after you finish playing. I'm like, really? I said, okay. That was it.
You don't have to know about Canton to wind up there. Norwegian-born Jan Stenerud is proof of that.
I know that Lenny Dawson grew up in Alliance, Ohio, 20 miles down the road, that these guys may have dreams of this thing. Heck, my dream was to be a ski jumper and maybe jump in the biggest ski hills in the world. It is strange in some way when I sit there and see all this big, strong, tremendous football players, and here I am in the elite class, and I have made less tackles or less blocks than any kids that grow up in this country.
For Dan Deerdorf, Hall of Fame enshrinement meant coming home.
Yeah, that's right. I was my junior high school right. My name is Dan, and I'm from Canton. And I am, and I'm proud of it.
I went to school with you, Glenda.
Oh, hi, Glenda. How you doing? God, it's been a long time.
I know.
I was here in 1962 to watch the groundbreaking when Pete Rozelle turned over a spadeful of dirt to start the construction of this building. What does it mean to me to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? I'm the only guy in that building who could have slept in his own bed, put on a coat and tie, and walked to the enshrinement ceremonies in 10 minutes. Well, when I went the parade on Saturday morning, when I went down the parade route and there's a band in front of your car, that was my high school band. And I looked, and carrying the banner was the high school football team. And on the team were 3 of the sons of 3 of my best friends growing up. Their sons. Oh, I got you. You know, I didn't cry during my speech, but I was sitting there in the car. I had tears in my eyes.
You could make up a story like Canton, Ohio, and Dan Deerdorf in the Hall of Fame.
A Hall of Fame career is built on years of achievement, but within that vast body of work, often there is one moment that stands out, a resume play that for each enshrinee represents the striving of a lifetime.
I found myself starting my first opening season game against the Green Bay Packers. Now it's 2nd down and 7, wide side to the rookie from Jackson State University, Len Barney, and he flacks out all-pro Boyd Dowler, and they tried to throw a quick out to him. And I closed so fast, I dove for the ball. I did a shoulder roll, forward shoulder roll, got up, ran it into the end zone. And as I slammed the ball on the turf and looked at it ascending up toward the sky, I looked up and said, Lord, this is going to be easy.
We were playing the Chargers, and I was pulling out on the sweep, being the next Charger myself, and the guy that I pulled out and hit and knocked his mouthpiece out was Bobby Howard, who was a good friend of mine. We were rookies together at San Diego. And I picked him up after I knocked him down and patted him on the butt, so everything would be all right.
It was against Miami in the playoff game, and it was the tying touchdown to James Brooks in the back of the end zone with a minute or so to go, an overthrown pass. Thank you very much. I thought I lofted it to a spot in the corner of the end zone where Winslow could make a catch because he was always good at that. He's so much bigger than the guys guarding him. And Brooks came out of nowhere. I never saw him. But I was throwing to him.
The run that I made in probably 1967 against the Baltimore Colts. Had the ball in my right hand the first time, went back to the left, changed to my left hand, saw the gap, boom. That, you know, signifies Gale Sayers.
What a lot of people were going to see would probably be the 99-yard run, record-setting run. That's not my run. I can remember playing St. Louis. We were on the 5-yard line going in to score. And that keeps coming to my mind because we run this playoff tackle, and Coach Landry said, you got to stay in there. There's going to be some softness. It's going to be look congested, but stay in there. You got to stay in there, and you'll probably end up popping through the other side. So I'm hitting in there, and I'm thinking about what he's saying. I just stopped and did a complete 360. 2 defenders, bow, hit head on. I spin out of this thing, going to the end zone untouched. And I just had this grin on my face because I knew Coach Landry, I knew what he's going to be thinking, and of course, when I got to the sideline, but of course, you know, it turned into a touchdown, but, you know, the first thing is you got to stay up in there.
We're playing Dallas. Of course, had to be against Dallas. I don't know why it just sticks in my mind. And it's a crossing pattern. And they got Leroy Jordan and Chuck Howell and all them boys swinging at me, okay? And some kind of miracle, I just sort of shook my shoulders and they all fell off to the side. Now, I think they knocked themselves off. There were so many of them. Hey, how did I get out of this thing, you know? It was a miracle, I mean, you know.
Well, it was the play when I ran over the 9 guys against Detroit. And I caught that diagonal pass. And when I turned up, I saw them all coming. And I just closed my eyes and rammed into it and came right through it. That's the one I want them to see. Most guys, man, they get ready to absorb the punishment, but I was trying to dish it out. And I also hit Lenny Moore.
I would have to go back to the 49er game in '58. The touchdown run with such amazing blocking. I've seen it so many times, man. It just lays there. I remember seeing blues mixed in with the 49ers. And that gave me the opportunity to kind of weave through that situation. What that meant to Baltimore, the stepping stone toward the first World's Championship, the first sudden death overtime game.
The 1958 championship game, there was a minute to go into the game, and if the Giants make their first down, they win the game. I made the play, and on that particular play, I broke my ankle.
That injury sidelined Gino Marchetti in the '58 championship game. But it was the comeback from his own injury that proved memorable for the Buccaneers' Leroy Selmon.
I just came off an injury, a knee injury that required surgery at the end of the 1978 season. And anytime a player goes through that, you always kind of wonder if you're really going to be able to come back and play. It was the only touchdown I ever scored. Fortunately, Wiley Chambers had created a fumble, and I picked it up, and I was lumbering along down the sidelines, and fortunately was able to get to the end zone and score.
We're playing the AFL Championship against the Raiders. And I kind of told Namath, I said, Joseph, I got a long one when you need it. And I'm running down there, and I've got the guy beat, and I'm running inside. And to make it kind of easy to understand, the ball's coming over my left shoulder here about 10 o'clock or 11. And then all of a sudden, the wind gets it, and the wind gets it. And all of a sudden, I rotate all the way around my head and my hands, and I catch it over here about 2 o'clock, and I go out on the 6-yard line. It's a 59-yard pass. And that was, to me, the greatest catch I ever made. And as one writer in New York, when he figured out the playoff money and a lot of things, he said, the catch that's worth $1 million.
That catch put the Jets in Super Bowl III, and 1 year later, Len Dawson passed the Chiefs into Super Bowl IV.
We were backed up near our end zone and needed a first down, or else the Raiders might come in and score, and we'd be playing catch-up football. And the pass to Otis Taylor that he caught on our sideline for about a 40 or 50-yard gain, I can see it right now, and I can also see Al Davis on the other side complaining he thought that he was out of bounds.
That was a bad game. It was the Immaculate Reception game, and this happened before the Immaculate Reception. This was the impossible reception, in fact. And the ball came down, I took it and ran for 13 yards, I think it was. My wife thought I should have went for a touchdown. I should have gone for a score. We would have won. It would have been over with, and there would have never been an Immaculate Reception.
We had to pull one play out of our film library as your resume play.
Duh.
Favorite play or a play that...
Duh. Let me think about that.
Therefore, with sports, it's a game. Rated E for everyone.
The game of football attracts a special breed of athlete. Those who rise to its highest level share something beyond talent. They have a love for the game and a way of expressing it that is intensely felt and intensely personal.
The play in front of 78,800 people. People turned me on. Oh, I see crowds like that. I want to play.
Well, right now, I'd like to play against Deion Sanders, really.
My father was a big autograph fan, and you get a chance to sit down and spend some time with him, and he told me that I could have played on his team, that I would have got the ball in every play. Which I know is unrealistic, but it sounds nice. You know, Dan Faust never told me that.
I think what I got from football is I got challenged a lot. And I think it's what one needs. You need to be challenged, be it in business or whatever. You need a challenge. Now, had I not came into football, I probably would have gone into the service and been a paratrooper, the Green Beret type guy.
I kid people. Played on 9 head coaches, 42 assistants, and I learned how not to coach as good as anybody in America.
My dad, coming from Italy, didn't understand football too well. He never watched me play. So every time I come and see him, when I got ready to leave the house, he'd point his finger at me. He said, Gino, whatever you do, stay out of their way. And I said, sure, Dad. Yeah, no problems, no problem.
The great game, I still worship it. I look at it on Sundays. And one of the things that killed me about it, you want me to tell you? When a back runs 15, 20 yards, and signals to come out the game. He's got to have a 2-minute rest. Ooh, that tears me all to pieces. And then I said, ooh, we run in for 60 minutes and he can't run 25 yards.
God. Doug Atkins. Now, I never played against Doug Atkins, but every offensive tackle I ever talked to said, this is the baddest ass that ever lived. This was the meanest, rottenest, nastiest defensive end that ever walked on a football field.
I can think of a John Henry Johnson. You didn't want to go near John Henry because he's going to hit you with that forearm and knock you out. And yet, I don't think there's anybody that's more lovable than John Henry Johnson.
I made the pitch look British.
Ah, we don't want you in here. Look, Pittsburgh Steelers. No, come on.
I think the rivalry is a memory. Jim Taylor and I on a football field gave no quarter, asked no quarter. It was rough, tough. He's going to run over me and I was going to crack his head. And I look at Jim Taylor and he looks at me and we're cordial to each other. But in our minds, you know, there's some doubt whether I got the best of him or he got the best of me. It's still somewhat there, you know. He knows it, I know it. So that's the way it is, and that's the way it's got to be.
Never had the occasion to hoist the index finger, which meant, number one, I lost in the Sandlot Championships. I was all-city, all-state, all-conference, all-American, and 7 years all-pro, but never had a chance to play on a winning team, never.
For once in a lifetime, a man knows a moment.
July of '92, I felt like I had amassed a winning team when I was inducted in football's Hall of Fame.
The reason you play the game is to win a championship. And the one thing that I walked away from when I quit football was not that I wasn't in the Hall of Fame, it was that I never won a championship. So I'd still go back and take my championship if I could get it. Asking me to trade the ring now that I'm here is hard. But to me, the championship is the ultimate, you guys did it.
At first, I really thought about that. What would I take? You know, world championship ring? But I think right now, I'd rather take the Hall of Fame ring. And again, it might sound selfish, and I don't want it to sound selfish, but after this experience that I've had the last 2 years, I mean, it's unbelievable.
I played my whole career 1950 through 1959. So to finally make it in 1996, well, it was just fabulous. And I still haven't come down off the high. I doubt if I ever will.
Having waited as long as I did, naturally you feel forgotten. You know, I didn't really think I was ever going to get in. And then all of a sudden when I was voted in, my God, all hell broke loose emotionally with me. I want to thank you very much, all of you, for making my day in the sun so memorable. Thank you.
God, this was the greatest weekend of my life. Here's guys I haven't seen in 30 years, 40 years, and we get together and we talk, and they're just as happy to see me as I am to see them. These are the fondest and greatest memories that you can ever have in your lifetime.
I never thought I would talk defensive back and take my hat off.
From the oldest living Hall of Famer to the newest class of enshrinees, they all came to Canton for one memorable weekend. 111 of the greatest players joined as one team, carrying the torch of pro football from one century to the next.
All the things that these guys talked about, all the things that they had come out of them, the passion, the commitment, the emotion, I live with that. I lived with that since I was a little kid. It's a deep game. There's more to this game than football. And the Hall of Famers that you're around, they let you know that it's more than just a game.
We look at this as the stone of everything we've ever tried to achieve in our life. And here we are. Here we are. When you've reached the pinnacle of your own personal dreams, if you had dreams of being anything you ever wanted to be, this is almost even bigger than that.
To be around people that you read about, that you've seen play in films, and you hear with them, and you're all in the same fraternity. I mean, it's like I tied him with the helping.
Football was something that I almost worshiped. I still think about it, the whole thing. And I still think about some of the things I did and some of the great points of my life.
Millions dream of one day being a star, but only a chosen few see that dream become their destiny. who do prevail and take their place among the legends of the game. The honor is so great, it is almost overwhelming.
I go through the emotion of this every time I come back. And quite frankly, I don't want to go through the emotion of it every year. It's so special. To me, you just kind of savor it.
When I left high school, when I went to TCU, and I walked out the door with my little bag and one suit, I cried. Nobody saw me, but I cried. And when I walked out of the pro football, I took my little name tag down, and I had a little duffel bag with my uniform. And I walked out there and I bawled because I knew I just left my family. This weekend has been a very similar thing. But I'm going to walk away from here knowing that I may not see some of these guys again and knowing that they're part of my family.
I'll never forget Deacon Jones stood up and Deacon said, "This is the one team from which you can never be cut. You can't be traded off this team. You can't even die off this team. You're on this team for immortality, and your children and your children's children and their children can come here and look at your bust and say, that was my grandfather and that was my great-grandfather." And it just, those, it might as well have taken a brand and branded those on my heart. I'll never forget those words.
To be a part of it, there ain't nothing better. There ain't nothing better.